If you're an agency owner or any kind of a freelancer, coach, or consultant, and you've spent your time trying to build everyone's business but your own, this video is for you. So about 15 or 16 years ago, I completely changed my own business model, and I converted it from an hourly/monthly fee-based business to a completely equity-based model. And I'm not suggesting you do that immediately, but I am suggesting you consider changing some of your clients into partners. In this video, I'll show you exactly what equity deals are and the first steps to get one, even if you've never done this before. Okay, so I'm Fred Gleek, and I've been doing online and offline marketing for a lot of years. And about 16 years ago, I completely changed my business model when somebody showed up at one of my boot camps in Vegas. And I decided at the end of that boot camp that rather than sending him out on his own to do it on his own based on the information I gave him, that we would partner together. And that was the beginning of how I created this whole equity-based model that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so let me give you sort of the big picture here on what an equity deal is, kind of the overview of the whole process. First off, it's a deal in which you not only you might get some kind of money upfront or on a regular monthly basis, but the big difference here is it's like owning a stock. You have a piece of the business. It might be 10%, it might be 20%, it might be 50%. Presuming that you started with someone at ground zero, that's a lot of what my deals are, is I'm getting 50% of the equity. But again, it depends on where your client, soon to be called a partner, is at the time you start working with them. So let me show you on the board here the three basic models that most consultants or coaches or even agency owners use. There's the flat fee model, which is what most of you are probably doing right now. And some of you are possibly doing a rev share deal. This is where it's almost like temporary equity, where you're getting a piece of the action, but only for a very specific period of time. So that's a rev share deal. And then the last one, which is the one I want to highlight, have you do, is an equity deal. And that equity deal is where you might get anywhere from 10 to 50% of a share in the business, in that particular portion of the business you're working on, forever, not just on a short-term basis. The flat fee, you're only getting these fees monthly or hourly. The rev share, you're getting a participation in profit, but again, only for a period of time. But in the equity deal here, you're getting a percentage of the business forever. So even if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, your kids or your heirs would continue to get paid. So again, that's what I'm suggesting you start doing. You don't have to do this with every client. You have to start taking a look and deciding on which is your best client that you might want to transition from doing standard either flat fees or rev shares and moving that first best client to an equity deal. Okay, so I'm going to show you an illustration with those three different models and what the money and the dollars would look like if you did it. So let's start with the flat fee model. Flat fee. And again, I'm going to assume that this was with my first big partner, Bill, just an example name here. So flat fee, then we'll do rev share, and then we'll have an equity deal here. And I'll show you the difference between what your total dollars would be. So if you take a look at this, your flat fee, very simply, every month you get, let's say, $3,000. $3,000 per month. And at the end of 36 months or a year, you're going to have $36,000. It's probably the deal that most of you have right now. Now, at the same time that you're making that $36,000, your client might be making, let's just assume this for the sake of example, that your client made $200,000 over that same 12-month period, okay? Now, in the rev share deal, you may have negotiated a slightly lower monthly rate. Say you went to $2,000 a month, but you were going to get 10% of the profits or of the gross revenue. Let's make it easy because then we're dealing with the gross numbers. So plus 10%. So you would get 2 times 12, 24K, plus you would get 10% of the profit or 10% of the gross, which 200K, that's an additional $20,000. So you would make $44,000 in the rev share deal. Better, but still not best. The best opportunity you can create, and again, This is going to more benefit you long-term rather than short-term. But the equity deal says that you're going to get a piece of the action. Let's say you started with this person from scratch and you negotiated a 50% share. And at the end of the year, this person, individual you were working with, made $200,000. And in your revenue, in your equity deal, you were going to get 50% of that, made $100K. That's certainly better than $44K or $36,000. So this is the best. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this or try to do this with every single client you currently have, but what I would start by doing is taking a look around and seeing who your best client is, the person you most enjoy working with, the one that has the highest probability of success. And by the way, if they're already an ongoing entity, you may not be able to negotiate 50%. But let's just say in this case, it was 40%. Let's say you got 40% of 200,000, you would still get 80,000, which is still a best offer. If you went down to 30% of 200,000 is 60K. It's still a better deal, even at those numbers, than doing a rev share or flat fee. The other thing to remember in this situation is you're going to pick a client to work with who you really like working with. So it's going to be a lot easier to work with that particular person because some of your clients are probably difficult. And the other thing to realize here is, in addition to working with people you like, you are not a fixed cost, you're a variable cost. And what does that mean to the client? They look at you as something that they pay for only based on the amount of revenue they generate. So rather than having a $3,000 a month nut that they have to pay you, if you make them no money, they're still out $3,000. In this arrangement where you do equity, you're becoming a variable cost, meaning you only get paid when you generate results. And who doesn't want that? Both for you and the client. They want that as well. So you've looked through your list of clients, and now you sort of have to figure out which one or ones are you going to target for putting together a deal like this. And do you need lawyers and long agreements to do this? In my case, the answer is no. I do a simple one-page agreement. And again, if you want that, you can go to the bottom of this video and you'll see a number there, or you can just put it in the comments that you want the one-page agreement. So you're going to put this one-page agreement together, and it's going to outline what the terms are. But the most important element of the terms of that one-page agreement are the percentages. So the question is, and I'm suggesting you always keep it between 10 and 50%. Let's discuss when you would go with each of these, or what range you would go with and why. I recently bumped into somebody who had an ongoing existing business. They'd been doing business for 4 or 5 years and generating, I think, $3.5 million a year. In a case like that, where they already have an ongoing business, that I'm not helping them start something from scratch, it would be closer to the 10% side than the 50% side. The 50% side is more reserved for those individuals that you bump into and you're working with them from the very start. So say, for example, a new venture, your deal might be a 50% agreement, and somebody who's already going might be 10, somewhere between 10 and 50% is where you're going to end up. Again, the question as to where you end up in this range is all based on how long they've been in business, how much your contribution is going to contribute to the total gross sales or the total profit. And that's what's going to be the determination of where you are in this continuum, somewhere between 10 and 50%. It's based on a lot of different factors. So you're going to want to include and think about each one of those as you come up with an agreement. And again, when you first approach someone, you're going to have to realize that, like any negotiation, you're probably not going to want to start with the lowest number you're willing to take. You may start, instead of 10%, you might say, well, what about 15%, so that you can come down to 10% rather than starting at 10% and ending up lower than that. So you want to start with a number and then be able to move a little bit in one direction or the other. And you might be thinking that 10% is a really low number. The individual I was thinking of who had a business that was doing 3.5 million per year, if I was coming in to work with this individual and my deal was, we're going to set that as a baseline measurement, and I'm going to get a piece of the action based on any increase. Well, say I was able to get this to go from 3.5 to $6 million, in a year. I'm brilliant, by the way, so that's how I was able to do that. So if I get it from 3.5 to $6 million, that's an increase of 2.5 million. And let's say I was getting 10% of that. I'm now going to be getting from that individual at the end of the year, based on my equity position, $250,000. Certainly better than working on an hourly or monthly rate. And some of you are wondering, wow, this sounds pretty complex and pretty complicated. The answer to that is no, it's not. There's no lawyers involved because you have a one-page simple agreement. And what if this doesn't work out? Then what happens? Well, within this one-page agreement, you have clauses that tell you and your partner at that point what's going to happen. It's like a prenuptial agreement, but for business. So you're going to have all of those various elements detailed in this one-page agreement. It doesn't need to be longer than that. And by the way, if it is longer than that, it's going to make the client feel uncomfortable, like they have to go talk to a lawyer. And that's why we want to get to this one-page agreement, because it makes it feel like it isn't a massive thing to do, that they have to investigate and use high-priced lawyers and spend a lot of money, because that's exactly what you don't want to have happen. So now you're wondering, how do I get started? What are the things you have to do, like right now or this week? So number one is list all potential partners you might be willing to work with, okay? So you're gonna list all these partners. And when you list them, you're gonna wanna look for all of their various pluses and minuses. And by comparing and looking at all those things, you're gonna probably innately feel that there's certain people that you would love to work with and certain people that you would definitely never wanna work with. So that's the thing you do first, is you wanna list all of those people. Then secondly, you want to go ahead and obviously contact them. And that's where you want to be prepared with presenting them these options in this one-page agreement and stressing the idea that by moving from an hourly or fixed monthly rate with them, you become a variable cost. And that's one of the reasons why they will be probably open to this kind of a deal. Because think about it, who doesn't want to pay someone based on their results and based on their worth? And that's what you're trying to communicate to that client to turn them into a partner. In order to make sure you're choosing the right partners, you also want to obviously, investigate them and their business model, not investigate like FBI kind of stuff, but you're going to look at carefully, what are they doing? Does it have growth potential? Is it something that you think has long-term viability? So that's what you're going to do. And based on those factors, including listing them, contacting them, actually, this would probably go before contacting them. You want to investigate them first. All of this is important for you to realize that you don't have to start big. Start this small. Pick one and get going, because one equity deal for me was worth over $3 million over a period of time. And so one equity deal could end up creating a long-term legacy for your heirs and your kids that is really worth it. So now if you want my help in any of this, I have something called my 90-day accelerator, in which I help you find and locate your first equity deal within 90 days. And if I don't, I work with you for up to a year to help you find one. And if I can't do and find you one deal within a year, I give you your money back, because if not, I'm not worth my money. Based on the same philosophy I'm teaching you here, I want to make sure if it doesn't end up with results, I haven't done my job, you haven't gotten your equity deal. And that's what I need to show you how to do. Okay, so at the bottom of this video, you're going to see a phone number there. Feel free, that's my real number. It's not going to some VA. I'm going to get those messages and either text me or call me and leave me a message on that number. Happy to talk with you. Are you and I a match? I don't know, but let's find out, because if you are, then it's worth pursuing. The real money is in equity deals, not in flat fees, not in revenue sharing. The real big money is in equity.